Are they breathing?
I have no idea. I'm not inside the house. It's closed.
A mystery surrounding the death of acting legend Gene Hackman. The star, his wife, and one of their dogs were found dead inside their Santa Fe, New Mexico home. According to police, a maintenance worker found their bodies. Let's dive into what we know at this point, and perhaps the biggest part of this story making headlines, what we're still trying to learn right now. We're on the case, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. When this story first broke of the death of an acting legend, his wife, and a family dog, police said they didn't suspect foul play, but the questions have really only mounted in the hours since the news first broke. So here's what we know at this point. According to the Associated Press, police say the 95-year-old Hackman was found in a mudroom, and his wife, 63-year-old Betsy Arakawa, was found in a bathroom next to a space heater. They lived in this $3.3 million mansion in a secluded part of Santa Fe, New Mexico. Now, what could be a big clue that we know at this point is that police say there was an open prescription bottle and pills scattered on a countertop near Arakawa, but we don't know what the prescription or pills exactly were. Police say there were no signs of gunshot wounds or suspicious wounds of any kind, like blood or bruising, that would indicate that there was some sort of violent encounter. So we have two people who are dead, along with a dog, without any signs of foul play, and that big mounting question: how did we get to this point? Now, your mind might next go to the possibility of carbon monoxide poisoning. In fact, Hackman's daughter told TMZ that's what she suspected, but the local gas company, according to the AP, tested the home. They didn't find any leaks. They didn't find any traces of carbon monoxide, and the fire department didn't find any signs of poisoning from toxic fumes. But there is still the possibility that somehow carbon monoxide could have slipped out of the cracks in windows or doors, maybe the doggy doors. According to NBC, 2 other dogs were found alive on the property. Plus, one of the detectives on the case said that sometimes people who are exposed to gas leaks or carbon monoxide might not show immediate signs of poisoning. So there's still a lot of possibilities out there that could explain what we're trying to figure out right now. Authorities have said they're not ruling anything out in this case at this point. We know the maintenance worker entered their house through an open front door when he arrived for work Wednesday morning. Here's the 911 call from the maintenance worker when he discovered the bodies.
Are you with the patient now?
I'm sorry?
Are you with the patient now?
Yeah, I'm over at their property. There's no address here, so I have to meet the ambulance or the police, whoever, down at the gatehouse. I'll bring them up here.
Okay. How old is the patient?
I have no idea.
You don't know? Okay, that's fine. Is the patient a male or a female?
A female and a male, probably. I don't know, sir. Just send somebody up here real quick.
Okay. Are they awake?
I have no idea.
Are they breathing?
I have no idea. I'm not inside the house. It's closed. It's locked. I can't go in. But I see them. She's laying down on a floor from the window.
Okay. Okay. Do they appear to be completely awake?
On the way?
Do they appear to be awake or alert?
No, it's not.
Okay. Okay. Did you hear them talk or cry?
No.
Okay. Okay. Are they moving at all?
No, dude, they're not moving. Just send somebody out here really quick.
Okay, my units are underway, okay?
We also know, according to the AP, that one of the maintenance workers said they rarely saw Hackman and his wife, and they hadn't had any contact with them in 2 weeks. The AP says that Hackman appears to have fallen, but that's really all we know at this point. Hackman was allegedly wearing a t-shirt, sweatpants, and slippers when he was found. A cane and sunglasses were also collected near his body. Hackman and his wife, Betsy Arakawa, had been married since 1991. We're talking about someone in Gene Hackman who's considered one of the great actors of all time. He was a 5-time Oscar nominee and a 2-time Oscar winner. Many may remember him for so many of his roles. I certainly remember him as the coach in Hoosiers. He worked in film for more than 40 years. And as this mystery has continued, we've seen tributes pour in from Hollywood elites, fellow acting legends like Morgan Freeman, Antonio Banderas, and Clint Eastwood. And when we talk about Santa Fe, New Mexico, it's important to point out that this is not the first time in recent history that authorities in Santa Fe have had to respond to a case involving a high-profile actor. The same sheriff's office that is investigating Hackman's death also investigated the accidental shooting on the Rust movie set starring Alec Baldwin. Joining us now to talk more about this from Santa Fe, New Mexico, is criminal defense attorney John Day. John, thanks for hopping on with us. I know it's been a busy day in your community. Let's talk about the timeline of how this story played out, at least from what we heard in the public, because you learned that Gene Hackman has died, his wife and the dog found dead as well. And the initial line is that police don't suspect foul play, but then the questions really start mounting. What do you make of kind of how the day has gone trying to figure out what happened to Gene Hackman?
Right. The sheriff's office says there's no evidence of foul play, but it's an incredibly mysterious set of circumstances. Apparently, people hadn't seen Gene Hackman and his wife for about 2 weeks. There's a call made. Somebody makes a call. Apparently, someone who works in maintenance for the super high-end subdivision that they lived in goes to the house and sees what looks like bodies and makes a 911 call saying, there's some people up here, I think they're dead, you better get up here. And when the sheriff's office gets there, according to affidavits for a search warrant, they find Gene Hackman and his wife dead, apparently mummified, meaning they'd been there a bit of time, and a German Shepherd dog in a closet. And they also find some prescription meds spilled on a countertop in a bathroom where Gene Hackman's wife is found. He's found apparently lying in a mudroom of the house. She's found in a bathroom. And that's what the sheriff's office finds when they get there.
You've worked a lot of cases in your career. When you hear foul play or not, no evidence of foul play, no suspicion of foul play, like what does that mean to you?
Well, you know, the first impressions are not always the ones that last, but when a sheriff's investigator and deputies go on the scene, you know, they don't see forced entry. They don't see anything nothing's been taken. Apparently there's no sign of a struggle, but the mystery, the tragic mystery, you have 2 people lying dead. You have a dog lying dead. The house is open, the door's open, and there are pills, apparently prescription meds on a bathroom countertop with the pill bottle open. It certainly raises all sorts of questions about what the circumstance was, what the timing was, and the fact that these 2 people had been in their house for obviously a period of time because of the condition that the bodies were in. I don't think anyone is suggesting any kind of foul play. The fire department went out there, didn't find any gas leaks, didn't find any CO2 leaking. So it's just, you know, there's no obvious explanation. There's certainly speculation that I'm hearing around town, but there's nothing obvious that stands out.
Yeah, because the carbon monoxide part's interesting. I'm not an expert on CO poisoning or a firefight or anything like that, but you would think that there would be a leak. It's not something that just turns off, but then it raises the question about how long had they been there. You know, this sheriff's office that's doing the investigating.
Right.
We have noted that this is the same sheriff's office that has dealt with high profile cases recently, most notably Alec Baldwin. How do you expect this to play out moving forward as you're someone who knows the players that are involved?
Well, it's the same sheriff's office that handled the Alec Baldwin case, and it's actually the very same criminal investigator, Detective Hancock, who handled the Baldwin investigation. Obviously, different set of circumstances, and Detective Hancock caught a lot of heat from the district judge in the Baldwin case for her methods and her approach to that case. But again, separate matter than this one. The sheriff seems to have been pretty forthcoming in what they found. Obviously, they're turning over the autopsies on the body, and I assume on this German Shepherd that was found. But it is striking that when the fire department and the utility company went to the house, no sign of any kind of gas leak, no sign of any sort of CO2 leak. A door was wide open. And so it just, there's no obvious explanation. You're certainly hearing stories about, well, did Mr. Hackman die? His wife found him. They were apparently an incredibly close couple. Once she found him, did she decide she didn't want to go on and she overdosed on the medication that was found here? These are all just speculative stories, but until there's a timeline, until there's more documentation about what really happened, people are going to imagine or guess at what was going on up there. But again, real tragic. Gene Hackman, up until that 10 years ago, had been a fixture around town. Nice guy. People left him alone. He'd eat in the local diners. He'd shop in the local stores. His wife invested in a couple of businesses here. It was a great neighbor to everybody here. Last couple of years, he'd obviously slowed down. He was 95, but he was, people around here left him alone.
And, for people who have never been to Santa Fe, New Mexico, it's a beautiful, beautiful place. And it's also a place where there are a lot of celebrities who live there, who have made their homes there. He lived in an incredibly beautiful place. I think I looked on Zillow, it was about $3.3 million for the place he lived. And it looked very secluded as well. Because for someone to not come in touch with him for 2 weeks, if someone hears that and sounds odd, like when I look at the map, if you weren't to leave your home, you wouldn't see Gene Hackman because he's not, it's not like he's living in an apartment downtown.
Right. The little enclave that he lives in, very, very exclusive, gated, lots of very large estates, lots of fencing, very private. And, the neighbors don't necessarily know what each other are doing up there. It's on top of a ridge, incredible views of the city and the mountains. And so not surprising that, say, neighbors hadn't seen him or identified that he was not around. And it turns out apparently that it was a maintenance crew who was just checking in who found the bodies. But it's a part of town that's very high up on a hill. Lots of very large houses, very secluded houses, lots of security externally anyway. But apparently the fact is that no one had checked on them for a period of time, 10 days or so, maybe 2 weeks.
How do you, and yeah, the detective did take a lot of heat in the Baldwin case, but I do think of just high profile cases, dealing with those. I mean, this is, cases like this happen across the country, unfortunately, every single day, and you don't really hear about them because they don't involve people like Gene Hackman. How is this sheriff's office when it comes to dealing with some of the publicity and the pressure they are now going to be under as the questions mount about exactly what happened? And I assume we won't really know a lot of answers until the autopsies come back.
Right. Well, again, this sheriff's office took a lot of heat from the Baldwin case. Their activities in the Baldwin investigation were picked apart at trial. A lot of criticism from the trial judge, a lot of criticism from the Baldwin's defense team, obviously. And so they took a lot of hit. And so again, this is, coincidentally, the same detective who was the lead detective in the Baldwin case. And in fact, in the Baldwin trial, the judge expressed a lot of disdain for the credibility of this detective, to put it that way. Whether that affects this case or not, obviously the sheriff put her back on investigations, and now she has another incredibly high-profile case. This one, again, not involving any claim of intentional murder, at least not that we know of.
Right.
It certainly looks like some type of accidental situation. We don't know the timing of it, obviously. But again, the sheriff's office is going to come under scrutiny for how they're handling it. And you would think that after the Baldwin trial that there would be sort of heightened scrutiny within the sheriff's department. Are we doing this the right way? Are we making any mistakes? Are we going to open ourselves up to criticism? Because they really did get criticized heavily for the way they handled Baldwin.
Yeah, can you dive into that just a little bit for people who are watching and they remember the ball? Rust has been that story has been in the news for so long, but specifically in New Mexico, what some of the big criticisms were. And I will just note once again, this is a completely different case that they're right. dealing with, but it is important. It's notable at least that it's the same players that are involved with another high level celebrity.
Right. Again, the same players, the same sheriff's office, another celebrity death case. And within the state, there was obviously, there was a lot of criticism leveled at this sheriff's office. They from the initial onset of the Rust shooting, where everything was videotaped and you could pick apart all the mistakes that the sheriff's office made in its initial approach, the initial contact. Of course, it was a chaotic scene at the Baldwin on the Rust shooting when at the film set at the movie ranch, but all their videotaped activities, all the things that the sheriff's deputies did were scrutinized in that trial, especially in the investigative stage. And again, you have the same investigator on this case, the very same investigator. So one would think that the sheriff's office took from the Baldwin situation a sense that next high profile case, we better make sure that we dot our I's and cross our T's, because we're going to get scrutinized again. Now, again, no suggestion in this case that there's anything amiss. There are no witnesses who have to be identified. But it's going to be an expert case. This is going to come down to pathologists and crime scene technicians. Obviously there are going to be autopsies conducted to see what the causes of death were. The other question is, were there any security cameras? Are there any videos? Is there anything else? Cell phones, incoming, outgoing communications. I mean, it's a death investigation, and it contains a lot of the same elements as Baldwin, except in this case, you don't have a high-profile A-list actor charged with shooting someone, but you have a beloved actor and his wife and their beloved dog who are all dead, and there's no ready explanation.
No, and that's kind of what made this story. It was almost like what we don't know brought this story to the point where it was headline news all day, beyond the fact that it is Gene Hackman and he was, one of the great actors of all time. And I know you talked a little bit about kind of the buzz around town today. What has it been like being in Santa Fe? I know you're at work right now, but just knowing that it's a small community, everybody knows where it is. There's a lot of celebrities, but I mean, today everybody's talking about where you live.
Yeah, it's, a lot. Santa Fe gets a lot of people who would be living in LA. It's a second, third home destination. So there's a lot of people who are well-known, prominent. They're left alone. I mean, it's a city that really lets people do what they want, especially if they're high profile, especially if they're well-known. They're not really bothered. They go to the same restaurants, the same stores, the same gas stations, and they're generally just ignored, and their privacy is respected. Hackman was someone who was really well liked here. He invested in businesses here. His wife invested in businesses. He was seen around town. Nobody, gave him a hard time. He was actually considered a local. But he stopped appearing about 10 years ago. Obviously, he was frail and getting older. Yeah. But he was well liked here because he was generally a nice guy. He had a few run-ins with people over the years, but the general perception was it was a nice guy. And of course, people in town are talking about it, and it's a mysterious death, and it's a mysterious death of someone who was well regarded as a local Santa Fe guy.
Yeah. And you forget that he was 95 years old, because I feel like in so many of his movies, whether it was Hoosiers all the way through like Behind Enemy Lines, like he just always seemed like he looked the same. And then in recent years, you saw that, Father Time, the saying is, catches up with everybody, and he looked more frail. Just in your experience with authorities in Santa Fe, how long does it typically take to get an autopsy back, and when we might be able to learn more?
And I do a lot of cases that involve autopsies, and I think there's definitely a backlog at our office of the medical investigator. It's unclear how long it's going to take them to get things like toxicology screens and a full autopsy report. But the way it works is there's a medical investigator, a field investigator who goes to a scene, does an initial evaluation, reports back to the pathologists at the office of the medical investigator, and then these autopsies will be conducted probably as soon as they're able to. But at the same time, a lot of the questions are not going to be answered until at least we get back those, the tox screens and the autopsy reports and so on. So I don't expect we'll hear anything from the sheriff's office immediately, but obviously there's a lot of interest in this, and the sheriff's office has a lot of interest in making sure they're seen to be doing it right this time, as opposed to the criticism they received for the Alec Baldwin case.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I'm sure the sheriff, when he started his day, or if it was yesterday when he first learned of Gene Hackman's death, you never know what's going to come down the line news-wise, and when you have a major case and the attention on that sheriff's office once again. And it's a story that a lot of us want to know the answer to because there are so many questions. John Day, criminal defense attorney from Santa Fe, New Mexico. Thanks for hopping on with us today here at Law and Crime.
Good to see you. Thank you.
It is a mystery that we will continue to follow here on Law and Crime. I'm Chris Stewart for On the Case. We'll see you next time.